My kid kept saying it. 6, 7. Not as an answer to anything. Not inside a sentence. Just 6, 7. The 6 pitched up high. The 7 stretched out and let down slow, like the tail end of a song nobody ever taught him. He'd say it walking past me in the hallway. He'd say it into the open fridge. He'd say it to no one at all. The way you hum without deciding to. I'd ask what it meant, and he'd look at me, like I'd asked what air was for. He wouldn't explain. He'd just say it again, a little louder, a little more pleased, as if saying it twice with the explanation. For a while, I let it slide by. Kids collect sounds. They wear a word down to nothing, and drop it, and pick up another one off the ground. I figured this was that, a phase with a tune. Then, I started hearing it everywhere. We were out somewhere, a parking lot, the edge of a field. I don't even remember the place, and a whole knot of kids I had never met let it out at once. 6, 7. Same tune, same lift and fall, like they'd all been handed the same note, off the same sheet of music. Then I noticed the person my kid watches on his screen was saying it too. The one with all the followers. He'd drop it into a video for no reason I could find, and somewhere 100,000 kids would say it right back at him. And something in me went quiet and careful. Because that's the moment a thing stops being a quirk and starts feeling like something that's spreading. It moved the way a cold moves through a classroom. Fast, sideways, everywhere at once. I started to wonder if it was a code, whether it pointed at something I was supposed to be worried about. Something he'd caught off the internet that I hadn't thought to check. So I did what a parent does now. I looked it up. And I found nothing clean. No definition that would hold still long enough to read. What I found instead was other adults, a lot of them. Parents typing the same 3 words into the same search bar at midnight. Teachers calling it a plague that had quietly taken over their rooms. Dictionary people, actual dictionary people, whose entire job is to pin words down, writing patient little explainers for the rest of us. And somehow, all of them ended in a shrug. I wasn't the only one standing outside this thing. I was standing in a very large crowd of grown-ups, all of us knocking on the same door. And that's where the question turned over on me. I'd been asking the wrong one the whole time. I'd been asking, what does 6, 7 mean? And the honest answer, the one everybody kept arriving at, was, not much. There's no decoder ring. There's nothing in there to crack. So the real question was never what it meant. The real question was, why 6, 7? Of all the sounds in the world, why that one? Why did it have to be those 2 small numbers in that order with that exact little tune? And the second I turned it that way, something loosened in my chest. Because I knew this. Not the words, the shape of it. I had sounds like that once. We all did. Sounds that meant nothing and mattered enormously. Sounds our own parents heard come out of us and could not place. Maybe this wasn't new at all, so let me tell you what 6, 7 actually is. As far as anyone can honestly say. It's a sound with no fixed meaning. Not a hidden meaning, just not a settled one. You can't point to a definition, because there isn't one sitting there waiting to be found. It works more like a flag than like a word. Kids say it, other kids say it back, and the saying is the entire event. What it means depends completely on the moment it gets said in. Mostly, what it means is, I'm here, you're here. We both know the sound. The dictionary people felt this too in the end. When one of the big dictionaries named it their word of the year, the interesting part was not that they had finally trapped it under a definition. They had not. The interesting part was that a phrase could be important enough to name, even while its meaning was still sliding around. It had already done the work a lot of words usually do after they are defined. It had let people recognize each other. Read that again slowly. It connected people before the meaning showed up. The meaning was optional. The connecting was the whole point. You can trace where the sound came from if you want to, though it keeps slipping out of your hands. It seems to have started as a throwaway scrap buried in a song. Then it got stuck onto clips of a basketball player who happens to stand 6'7". Then a video of one kid yelling it at a game gave the whole thing a face. But none of that is the meaning. That's just the road the sound traveled to get to my hallway. And standing there, holding this small, weightless sound, I thought, surely this is new. Surely no generation before mine ever made this exact particular mistake. So I went looking backward. A little over 100 years ago, there was a phrase that was everywhere. 23 skidoo. It came pouring out of everyone's mouth for a couple of years straight. People said it to mean get out, clear off, leave fast, but mostly they said it the way my kid says 6'7", for the pleasure of saying it. A little firework you set off in the middle of a conversation, just to watch it pop. It was probably the first catchphrase the whole country ever caught at once, before there was anything you'd call a network to catch it on. And it got so far in that it stopped living only in people's mouths. It got printed onto things, onto the pennants people waved, and the armbands they wore at the shore resorts, and the parks, and the county fairs. All the places you went specifically to be among everyone else, who was also there to be among everyone else. You could buy the sound and wear it on your arm. That is how deep into the country it went. And here's the part that actually stopped me cold. Even then, even at the very top of it, when it was on the flags and the armbands, and every single tongue in the land, nobody could say where it came from. There were theories, a famous building with a famous draft, a bit of old stage slang, a code lifted off a telegraph line. Take your pick, not one of them can be proven. And the people shouting it could not have cared less, because tracing it back was never the job. A phrase a whole country could say, and that same whole country could not source. Loud and everywhere, and from nowhere you could point to. The blur wasn't a flaw in the thing. The blur was part of how it worked. I knew that shape. I had just been looking at it on a screen instead of on an armband, and sometimes the nonsense isn't an accident at all. Sometimes the nonsense is the entire style. Not long after that, people started saying a thing was the bee's knees, or the cat's pajamas, meaning wonderful, the best, top of the heap. But listen to what they actually reached for. Bees do not have knees, not the kind you're picturing. Cats do not wear pajamas. The absurdity is the point. It's worn on purpose, the way you'd tip a hat to one side on purpose. The flourish isn't decoration sitting on top of the meaning. The flourish is the meaning. Saying it that ridiculous way was how you showed you were the sort of person who said it that way. Not a sound that stumbled into nonsense. A sound that chose nonsense, on purpose, with style. And the choosing was the badge. And it keeps climbing, right up the line, until it reaches you. Somewhere in there, a generation started saying things were groovy, far out. And those words did one very specific job. They made the grown-ups in the next room feel exactly one step behind. Your own parents, or theirs, heard those sounds land on the kitchen floor and felt that small, cold draft of being on the outside of something in their own house. Which means you have already done this, whatever your sound was, and you had one. It was built, at least partly, to leave the people who raised you standing on the other side of it. Not cruelly, just completely. That's the quiet thing nobody warns you about on the day you become the grown-up in the next room. You used to be the one inside. And if you keep pulling that thread, peeling the meaning off the sound, layer after layer, you eventually reach the oldest version of the whole thing. The version where the sound is everything, and the meaning is nothing at all. There's a very old story about a river crossing. Two groups of people, after a fight, on the banks of a river. And the real trouble was that they were the same kind of people, same blood, same language. From across the water, you genuinely could not tell who belonged to which side. They looked alike. They sounded, almost, alike. So the men holding the crossing came up with a test. They made everyone who wanted to pass say one word. The word was shibboleth. It only meant something like a stream or an ear of grain, and the meaning of the word did not matter even slightly. What mattered was the very first sound of it. One group's mouths could make that sh sound. The other group's mouths could not. It came out softer, shibboleth. And that one soft syllable gave them away at the water's edge. Sit for a second with how strange that is. The word meant nothing in the test. You weren't asked what it meant. You weren't asked anything you could have studied for. The gate was simply whether your mouth, shaped by the place you came from long before you ever got there, could form the sound the right way. Make the sound, cross the river. The sound itself was the entire ticket. We still use that word, shibboleth, for exactly this. For any small phrase or sound that quietly sorts the inside from the outside, without anyone having to explain itself. And stripped all the way down to the root, that is what every one of these sounds has been doing the whole time. Drawing a line you can hear, putting some people on one side of it, and some people on the other. My kids' version has no river in it, no crossing. Nothing rests on getting it right. But it is the same old machine, just running gentle. So here is where I finally landed, after all that walking backward. What my kid is doing is the softest version of one of the oldest things people do. There's no river. There's no guard at the water. There's no cost to getting it wrong. There's just a sound and a line drawn with it, and him standing happily on the inside of the line. And the thing I'd been afraid of, that the internet had reached in and taken something of his out from under me, that turned out not to be quite right. The pull underneath all of this isn't new, and it didn't come from a screen. Kids have always built sounds to find their people. What's new is only the pipe. The thing the sound travels through is faster now and wider than any pennant or any river ever was. A sound that once needed a whole resort and a summer to spread can cross a country in an afternoon. That's the only piece that actually changed. Not the sound, and not what it's for. Just how fast it moves, and how far. So I'd been afraid of the wrong thing the entire time. I thought I was afraid of the word, of what it might secretly mean, of where he might have caught it. But you can't be afraid of a word that was never hiding the secret you imagined. What I was actually afraid of was quieter than that, and older, and had nothing to do with any screen. The thing that rattled me was never really the word. It was that the word had an inside, and I was standing on the outside of it. I'm not behind. I didn't fail to keep up. The door just wasn't built for me. It was never going to be. And this is the part that took me the longest to set down. That isn't the thing going wrong. That is the thing working. So the next time he comes through the room and lets it out, 6, 7. That high lift, that long, slow fall. I think I'll do less than I used to want to. I won't look it up. There's nothing in there to find. and finding it was never the point. It isn't really a question he's asking me. It isn't aimed at me at all. It's the sound of a door, somewhere inside him, easing shut. Quietly. No slam. Just closed. And on the other side of it, in a room I don't get to walk into, that I'm not supposed to walk into, he's doing the oldest thing there is. He's finding the ones who are his. 6-7. I don't know what it means. He does. And that's enough. That was always the whole of it.